Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video with the Positive Birth Company. It's very echoey in here. I do apologise, it's a new kitchen, it's not quite fitted out yet. I hope you're all okay. You may or may not have seen my first video, but if not, I will introduce myself now. Hi, my name is Izzo, and I am one of the Positive Birth Company's TTC vloggers, and this is volume 2 of my series. So the reason I am doing these videos is because my husband and I have been trying to conceive for a really long time, so we are taking part in the Trying to Conceive Diaries. You can follow my journey on Instagram. I am under amber.itzo. I document my entire journey and have done for a really long time. If you do want to get up to date with our journey so far, my husband and I did film a video a few weeks ago, which you will be able to find on this channel, just talking you through kind of where we are now, or where we were then, I should say. And yeah, just getting to know us a little bit. I also have my own YouTube channel under just my name. It's just Amber Itzo. I believe it is in the description box below if you do want to catch up. I thought for today's video, I had kind of started filming like a bit of a proper vlog where I was going to take you with me over the last month, but so much has gone on that it literally became impossible. We've been renovating our house, which has been a huge commitment and then some. So there's always been building men here and workmen and tradesmen. They're all the same thing really, aren't they? But we've always had people here, which has made things a bit difficult to vlog, and things have been a bit all over the place. So I thought I would come and join you today with a nice cup of tea, a decaf for me, and just talk to you about things that have kind of gone on over the last few weeks, because since I last came on and spoke to you all, so much has changed. Our entire treatment plan, if you like, has kind of flipped on its head. So this is our third cycle of IVF, and we had decided to go with a clinic in London. We've changed clinics this time as it obviously wasn't working for us the first 2 times. We have a bit of a track record when it comes to poor embryo quality, and that seems to be our issue. We don't really seem to be able to get embryos going past the day 3 mark. Most clinics like them to develop into blastocysts, which is where the embryo starts to hatch, and they like to transfer them at day 5. We have only ever got 1 embryo that has made it to day 5 out of 17 eggs that have been collected. And yes, so our main focus is getting to that point. IVF in the UK is really expensive, and where we live, we don't qualify for any NHS funded IVF at all. So that is a massive burden for us because we're already thousands and thousands of pounds down. We had found a clinic that we really loved in England. We really did adore them. The embryologist was fantastic. The way that they did things was so up my street, I can't tell you. When you've been trying to conceive for 6.5 years, you kind of become very accustomed with the processes and all these different things. Like the amount of research I've done on IVF is absolutely abysmal, to be honest. It's a bit embarrassing. It's literally all I think about day in, day out. Whoops. Anyway, we really fell in love with this clinic. We were due to have a consultation next week on the 28th, and they had asked that I had a lot of my blood tests repeated prior to the consultation. These blood tests alone were going to cost me around £700–800. So I'd been ringing my doctor and effectively trying to get them done through the NHS. And they were blood tests that you can have done on the NHS. I've had them done on the NHS before, but I had them done 3 years ago, so now I need them renewing. Long story short, my GP has refused to do them and said that because I'm going to be consultant-led, I'm not under the NHS, through no fault of my own. Obviously it's not my choice, but they've basically said that they're not going to fund the blood tests, so we were going to have them done privately. On top of that, my husband Marco needs a sperm analysis. He needs that repeating. We haven't had any of our tests done since 2018, so the only indicator of where things are at are from our previous cycles of IVF. So our consultant kind of wanted them all redone, which was fine. We were quite happy to have them done, but the tests alone, including all of my blood tests and my husband's blood tests, were going to cost us around £1,000. The IVF itself, the protocol that the clinic wanted me on, they wanted me on long protocol, which basically meant the cycle prior to our IVF cycle, I would have had to take some tablets like the pill or something like that to effectively shut down my reproductive system so they could manage it. and they knew when I was going to come on my period, because that's really unpredictable with me because I have PCOS, and take it from there. And then I would do the full IVF cycle, but then what they wanted to do was a freeze-all cycle, which basically means that every embryo that fertilized as a result of our IVF cycle would be put in a freezer. We would then, a couple of months later, effectively start the treatment again, and I would start taking certain medications to prepare myself for that transfer rather than transferring it within that first fresh cycle. The reason for that is because I've got PCOS, I'm quite high risk of something called OHSS. So over hyperstimulation, or it might be a bit longer than that, OHSS effectively means that you have overstimulated your ovaries, and it can be quite dangerous. So you just hear my dog walking around, I do apologise. So yeah, they decided that they wanted us to do a freeze-all cycle, which is fine, like that was absolutely fine, we were quite happy to do that. But when we worked everything out, we worked out that the entire cycle, including all the tests that we needed doing and certain other things that were kind of being, not pushed at all, but certain things that we would need because of our poor embryo quality, was effectively pushing, it was pushing the cost right up, and it was going to cost us about £12,500 to £13,000 for this cycle of IVF. So we had made the decision that because of that, this was going to be our last cycle of IVF. We couldn't afford to keep doing this, and if the outcome was no different and we didn't have anything in the freezer and it didn't work and we needed a whole fresh cycle again, we couldn't afford to do another £12,500 on top of the £1,000, like the thousands of pounds that we've already spent. Like, it's just extortionate. Like, you have to draw the line somewhere. So that's where we were at. I was really struggling with the concept of this being our last cycle, and I think, of course, I'm really, really hopeful that this cycle is going to be the cycle, and this cycle is going to be the cycle where I'm pregnant and it's all wonderful and it all works. However, I like to think of myself as a bit of a realist, and I'm very aware of the fact that it might not go that way, and it might not work, it might not ever work, but I want to be able to give it my best shot. And I didn't feel that by making this our last cycle, when it was our first cycle of doing things completely differently, I almost feel like it's again a bit of a trial and error, but with a different clinic. So we made the decision that we didn't want this to be our final cycle. But if we kind of realised that that by doing treatment in the UK, this was always going to be our final cycle, because we just couldn't afford to do it. There are other options. There are low cost clinics. There are certain clinics that only charge NHS prices, but we did find that a lot of these clinics didn't do certain things that we needed in terms of embryo quality, and we wanted certain tests doing, or contemplated having certain tests doing, so that we could have the best possible chance. So we were looking into things like, I'm going to start using a load of jargon that I'm so sorry if you don't understand, but things like IMSI and PIXI, which are slightly more technical versions of IVF. And we started having a look into things like that, but everywhere that we looked, we were still looking at about £12,500. Now, about a year ago, we really toyed with the idea of going abroad, but we decided not to, on the basis that my husband's self-employed. I've recently started my own business. We have a Labrador who would need looking after. There were a lot of things to consider. So we decided that going abroad wasn't an option, but the more we were looking at clinics in the UK and going into our third cycle, the more we kind of thought, right, okay, maybe we should look at going abroad, because this doesn't seem to be getting any cheaper, and wherever we go in the UK that will meet our requirements, it seems as though the cost is just going to be through the roof. I'm already working 2 jobs to pay for our IVF. My husband is a hairdresser, so he works full-time anyway, but on top of that, he's been doing like little Amazon deliveries and things like that just to earn extra money for it, that we just thought, if we don't do it, we'll regret it. So we started having a look into clinics abroad. It is a minefield. It is an absolute minefield on the basis that when you're looking at clinics in the UK, you have one country to kind of work your way through. You can narrow that down to the county that you live in or within a certain radius of where you live, and it's quite easy. Whereas when you're going abroad, you have a whole world to kind of work your way through. We decided that we were going to stay in Europe. I say obviously, but that's what we decided. We were going to stay in Europe. We considered Italy because my husband is Italian, and I thought maybe if we went somewhere where he was fluent in the language, where he felt he grew up there, so where he kind of feels at home, I thought maybe that would be a nice place to look. But unfortunately the rules in Italy are that you can only fertilise up to 3 eggs, so you can only have 3 embryos at most, and they won't freeze anything either. There are laws out there, so that's not for us. So we definitely decided that Italy was off the cards. We kind of narrowed it down to Czech Republic, Greece and Spain. But again, you've still got 3 countries to look through, and you haven't just got 3 countries with a county in each. Like, you literally have the whole country. They're spread out. We were looking at clinics in Prague. We were looking at clinics in a place called, I think it's Brno. I don't know how you say it, but it looks a bit like Brno. In Czech Republic. We were also looking in Madrid, Alicante, Athens. There were clinics all over the place. So in the end, what we did a couple of weeks ago, we had a consultation with a company called Your IVF Abroad. Now, this was gifted to me. It's not an ad in any way. Like, there's no obligation for me to talk about it in this video or any video or ever. Emma, who is one half of Your IVF Abroad, has done some work for me with my company, and she just offered to do this for us, which was a massive help. So Your IVF Abroad kind of do a clinic match consultation where they go over your needs, what you want, your history, etc., and match you with the best clinics in Europe for you based on what you want. And thank God we did that, because it narrowed it down to 3. One was in Alicante, one was in Madrid, and one was in Athens. We had a look at all 3, and we decided that we would have consultations with 2 of those clinics. So in the last week, we have had a clinic with ARC IVF, who are in Athens, and another clinic called Instituto Bernabeu, and they are in Alicante. They're also in Madrid, but we were specifically looking at the Alicante clinic. So we had both of those consultations, and I would not be lying by telling you that the outcomes were worlds apart. So ARC, we'd already inquired with anyway before speaking to Emma, because I'd got quite a lot of recommendations from Instagram. A lot of people had mentioned them. So we had this consultation, and the doctor, Dr. George, he effectively wants us to go on short protocol again. So I would be on a high dose of medication from day 1, and they would then lower that medication. They would focus on maturing enough eggs and a higher yield of eggs than I've had before. So the most eggs I've ever had collected is 10, which is quite low for somebody with PCOS. So they would be aiming for around 15 to 20 eggs for me. They don't want too many, they don't want to overstimulate me. So they're saying if we aim for 15, 20 eggs, they would then use Pixie, which, like I said, is a more technical version of IVF. So because my husband has issues with his sperm as well, they would find the best sperm rather than just picking any. They would use ICSI effectively to find the best sperm out of all of them to fertilise with my eggs. But then when they fertilise them, when they put them in the Petri dish, I believe that Pixie is where they almost have like a gel that helps them fertilise and helps keep them together. So it's a bit more technical, but in Greece it's included in the price, whereas in England you have to pay separately for ICSI, which again is a more common but technical version of IVF, and then on top of that your Pixie, your MC and all the other add-ons. And I'm really hoping that I'm not confusing the life out of you here, so I'm really sorry if I am. So that's what he wanted to do, and he was quite happy to do a fresh transfer, and we really liked that. And then the following day we had the consultation with Instituto Bernabeu, and the doctor from there, Dr. Castillo, he went down a completely different route. And he, similar to Dr. George, wanted us to have a few tests done, blah, 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 blah. but he had a huge focus on genetics and chromosomes and wanted us to have a load of chromosome and genetic testing to make sure that our genes and our chromosomes were actually okay, and that it was actually possible for us, and that we didn't need like donor egg, donor sperm, things like that. He then wanted to do embryo biopsies, which basically means that when the embryos get to day 5, they take a few cells from the embryos and test them genetically and test that they're okay genetically. They then freeze them all, and any that are suitable we can then go and have a frozen transfer. So to be honest, that knocked me off my feet a little bit. I didn't expect that at all. Genetic testing is things that they usually do in older women, so women who are perhaps 35 and above. They're the kind of tests that they usually do then, or if they think there's issues with egg quality and things like that. But for me, I don't know, we just really didn't expect that, and it knocked me for 6 a little bit. So we've been talking a lot, that's kind of where we are now, and we're in the process of choosing the clinic that we want to go to. I think we're leaning more towards Greece. I'm not entirely sure. I think we've now got a write-up of each of the consultations come through, all the tests that we need, and all the prices. So I think we're going to go through tonight, or at some point this weekend, and work out exactly what we're going to do going forward. But I am at a point now where I feel excited about it. Like, I feel excited to go abroad. I feel excited to have a bit of a holiday while I'm at it. The logistics of it, like my husband's work and looking after the dog, things like that, like we'll work all that out. Like, even if I have to go for 5 or 6 days by myself, I think on average wherever we go we'll be out there for around 10 days to 2 weeks. So even if it means that I have to go for the first 5 days by myself, that's absolutely fine too. Like, it is what it is, we'll figure it out. But I feel quite relieved at the concept of it not being our final cycle if it doesn't work. Whereas before, that was something that I was really struggling to come to terms with, because I think it almost put a lot of pressure on this cycle. My body will tell me when it's ready to give up, and at the moment I don't think it is at a point where I feel it's necessary. I think I've still got a couple of cycles left in me yet, and albeit I hope that they're frozen transfers if this doesn't work, but it is what it is, and we'll kind of figure it out. So now it's just a case of getting ourselves in tip-top shape, making certain lifestyle changes. I am going to try and get my BMI to an ideal weight as my previous clinic recommended. So I have about 2 stone to lose. So I am about a week into really trying to do that. I'm not someone who likes to diet. I don't agree with diets. I think if diets worked, there would be one diet and there wouldn't be any more, because it would work. I'm not really a diet person, but I am at a point where I'm trying now to lose that weight healthily. So I have certain workouts that I'm going to be doing and supplements that we're now taking. So I'll talk you through the supplements that I'm taking. They're in here. These are most of what I take. So because of my polycystic ovaries, I take metformin. So metformin is a tablet that a lot of people take for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, because it helps to regulate your insulin. So some people with PCOS are prescribed metformin because it helps regulate their insulin levels and in turn helps with their PCOS. So that's why I'm on that at the moment. In addition, we both take Conceive Max. So I take the Conceive Max for women and Marco takes Conceive Max for men. It's a powder sachet that you put into your drink. It's very orangey, it's a very artificial taste, but it's definitely bearable. But that literally has everything that you need in it. It's got all these different vitamins and minerals. It's amazing. We really get on with it. Whether or not it's made any difference, it's too early to tell at the moment, but that's what we're on. And then everything else is just kind of a top up. So the clinic did advise that I take omega-3. So we got this great big bottle of it from Holland & Barrett. We've actually got 2 because we got it in a penny sale and it was like buy one, get the second one for a penny. So we've got 2 lots of these and I take 3 of these a day. So I literally take 3,000 milligrams a day, which seems extortionate. On top of that, I take CoQ10. Marco also takes the omega-3, but the CoQ10 I take. I am going to be changing this to ubiquinol, another clinic that we spoke to recommended that, and it's something to do with how the body breaks it down. I think the body finds it easier to break down ubiquinol than it does CoQ10. You need a much higher dose of this. So that I'm changing, but it's still a very, very similar thing. They're near enough the same thing. On top of that, I also now take, I say I now take, I haven't started it yet. I think tomorrow I'll probably start it, or should start it, should I say, Inositol. So this is the Zeta West one. Zeta West's range aren't the cheapest of supplements, but she's like a guru in the fertility world, so I trust her. But this was something that another clinic recommended I take to help with my PCOS and try and help regulate my cycles. So I'm hoping that between metformin and inositol, that my period does regulate itself, because it causes me a lot of issues, and we're now on month 3 with no period, which is really rather annoying. I also take vitamin B12, so this hasn't necessarily been suggested to me, but around the time that I'm due on, I really suffer with ulcers. I get really bad ulcers in my mouth. I'm really tired, I'm lethargic, I'm not a nice person to be around at all. So somebody just recommended that I got some of these supplements. So they're only a small dose. These are Nutravita ones, but I take these every day along with vitamin D. So vitamin D is something that most clinics, I think, will recommend that you take. They'll always recommend that you up that. So that's something that I'm taking as well. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and my vitamin D, I take 7 different things a day. So I am a walking medicine medicine cabinet. And it's a bit of a pain really, but hopefully it will all be worth it. So that's what I'm on now. So the next time I speak to you all, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have lost a little bit of weight, and I will be well on my way to that. We'll have picked a clinic, which is quite exciting. So I'm going to take you all on that journey. So volume 3 of the TTC Diaries will be with you next month. In the meantime, like I say, you can follow me on Instagram at amber.izzo, and my YouTube channel as well, which is just Amber Izzo. But it has been a pleasure as always, so thank you to the Positive Birth Company for having me on again. It's always a pleasure doing these videos, and I will see you next time for volume 3.